The rain didn't fall, it attacked. At 1:43 a.m., Sanaa Wills stood beneath the broken awning of a closed bodega on West 6th Street, watching the storm turn Los Angeles into a watercolor painting. Her shift at Westside Children's Medical Center had ended an hour ago, but she couldn't go home yet. Not to that empty studio apartment where the walls knew too much about dying. So she walked, let the rain soak through her scrubs, let the cold remind her she was still alive. That's when she saw her. A small figure on a park bench, perfectly still, rain hammering down on a body that didn't flinch, didn't move, didn't seem to breathe. Sanaa's heart, the one the doctors said was weakening from chemo she could no longer afford, kicked hard against her ribs. She ran. The child was maybe 10 years old, Korean, wearing a white cotton nightgown that clung to her like a second skin. Her lips had gone the color of bruised plums. Her eyes stared straight ahead, seeing nothing. "Baby," Sanaa whispered, kneeling in the flood. "Baby, can you hear me?" The girl's mouth opened. No words came, just a tremor that started in her jaw and spread through her entire body like an earthquake. Sanaa didn't think. She lifted the child, light as paper, cold as death, and ran back toward the only place she knew could help. Welcome to K Stories by Emma. Before we continue, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss any story. Inside the medical center's emergency bay, under fluorescent lights that made everything look like a crime scene, Sanaa wrapped the girl in heated blankets while Dr. Kwame Osei worked to stabilize her core temperature. The child's eyes followed Sanaa everywhere, silent, wide, terrified of being left again. 20 minutes crawled by. The girl's shivering finally eased enough for her lips to move. Not her name, not what happened, just 10 digits repeated like a prayer. 818-555-4739. Sanaa pulled out her phone, hands steadier than they should be for someone with 3 months to live. She dialed. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, a man's voice cut through, sharp, controlled, but fraying at the edges. "Who is this?" Not a greeting, a demand. Sanaa felt the weight of the moment settle on her chest. This voice belonged to someone used to being obeyed, someone who didn't receive calls at 2:17 a.m. unless the world was ending. She glanced at the girl, whose small fingers had locked around the edge of Sanaa's scrub top. "Sir," Sanaa said, her voice soft but firm, "your daughter is at Westside Children's Medical Center on Vermont Avenue. She's stable now, but she was in the rain a long time. She's shivering." The line went silent, not dead. She could hear breathing, ragged and uneven. Then a single word stripped of all authority. "Zuri?" "Is that her name?" Sanaa asked, gently. "Yes," his voice cracked. "Is she—" "She's safe," Sanaa interrupted, because that's what he needed to hear first. Cold, scared, but safe. "How fast can you get here?" 12 minutes, he said. The call ended. No thank you, no questions. Just the sound of a man who'd just remembered how to be afraid. Dr. Osei looked up from his chart, eyebrows raised. "You know who that was?" Sanaa shook her head. "Sung Chol Park, real estate, billions. I've seen him on the news. He doesn't do interviews, doesn't do public anything. If this is his kid, he didn't finish, didn't need to." Sanaa looked down at Zuri, this small girl in a silk nightgown that probably cost more than Sanaa's monthly rent, and wondered what kind of life you run away from when you have everything. At 2:29 a.m., the emergency bay doors flew open. A man stepped through, tall, sharp-featured, wearing a black suit that hadn't wrinkled despite whatever sprint he'd made to get here. His eyes scanned the room with surgical precision until they landed on the bed, on Zuri, and for just a second the mask slipped. Sanaa saw something she recognized, the face of someone terrified they're too late. His hands hovered inches from his daughter's face, close enough to feel her warmth, but not close enough to actually touch, as if he'd forgotten how. "Zulia," he whispered in Korean, his voice softer than Sana expected from a man who'd walked in like he owned the building. Zuri's eyes opened. She looked at her father, not with relief, but with something closer to resignation. She didn't reach for him, didn't cry, just stared, and that seemed to hurt him more than tears would have. Sungchul switched to English, his accent precise. What happened? Why did you leave? Zuri's mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. Sungchul tried again, leaning closer. Were you taken? Did someone? Zuri flinched, pulled back into the pillows, and reached for Sana's hand instead. The look on Sungchul's face, Sana had seen it before on parents who realized too late that their children had learned to survive without them. He straightened slowly, his jaw tight, and turned to Sana for the first time. You found her? On a bench near MacArthur Park, Sana said. She was alone, non-responsive. I brought her here because I work nights. I'm a caregiver on the 3rd floor. His eyes tracked over her, the damp scrubs, the exhaustion carved into her face, the way Zuri's fingers were still wrapped around hers. She won't let go of you. It wasn't a question. No, Sana admitted, she won't. Dr. Osai returned with discharge papers and a gentle warning. Mild hypothermia, but she'll recover fully with rest and warmth. The mutism is psychological, trauma response. She may need time before she speaks again. Sungchul absorbed this like he was calculating a business risk. I'll arrange a specialist, private care, whatever she needs. She needs you to figure out why she ran, Sana said quietly, too quietly to be a challenge, but he heard it anyway. His gaze snapped to her, sharp enough to cut. You don't know anything about us. I know she was sitting in the rain for over an hour, Sana replied, not backing down, and when you got here, she flinched. Sungchul's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes flickered. Shame, maybe, or anger at being seen so clearly by a stranger. I've been working, he said, as if that explained everything. My wife died 5 years ago. I've been trying to... He stopped, shook his head. It doesn't matter. It does to her, Sana said, glancing at Zuri, who was watching them both with wide, unreadable eyes. The nurse appeared with a wheelchair and a soft smile. We're ready to take her home whenever you are, Mr. Park. Sungchul nodded, but his attention stayed on Sana. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, holding it out between 2 fingers. The embossed silver lettering caught the fluorescent light. Sungchul Park, Park Global Holdings. I don't know what you want, he said carefully, but I pay my debts, name it. Sana looked at the card, at him, at Zuri, who was still holding her hand. I don't want anything, she said. Sungchul blinked as if she'd just spoken a language he didn't understand. Everyone wants something. Sana pulled her hand free gently, tucking the blanket around Zuri one last time, her touch tender in a way that made Sungchul's chest tighten. Then I guess I'm not everyone. She turned and walked toward the exit, her wet scrubs leaving faint footprints on the polished floor. Sungchul stood there, business card still extended to empty air, watching her disappear through the double doors. No one had ever refused him before. No one had ever looked at his money and walked away like it meant nothing. He looked down at Zuri. His daughter was staring at the doors too, her small face crumpling with something that looked like loss. For the first time in 5 years, Sungchul Park realized he had no idea how to fix what was broken, and the only person who seemed to know how to reach his daughter had just left without looking back. 3 days after the rain, an envelope arrived at Sana's apartment. Thick, cream-colored paper that felt expensive just to touch. No return address. Inside, a cashier's check for $50,000 and a note in sharp, precise handwriting. For saving what matters most. Use it however you need. Sungchul Park. Sana sat on the edge of her second-hand couch, staring at more money than she'd earn in 2 years. Enough to cover the treatments she'd stopped. Enough to buy herself time. Her hands shook, not from the cancer, but from the sheer weight of possibility. She thought about Dr. Patel's voice 3 months ago. If you'd come to us sooner, if you could afford the newer protocols. She thought about the pill bottles she refilled at the free clinic, the ones that only dulled pain instead of fighting disease. She thought about what $50,000 could mean. Then she thought about why he'd sent it. Not because she'd asked, not because she'd hinted, but because that's what people like Sungchul Park did. They solved problems with money, kept the world at arm's length with generosity that required nothing of them except wealth. Sanaa had spent her whole life taking care of others while refusing to be taken care of. Pride, maybe, or fear that if she let someone help, she'd owe them something she couldn't repay. She picked up the check, stared at the numbers. Then, with hands that barely shook, she tore it cleanly in half. She found a piece of notebook paper and wrote in her neat, rounded script. She was cold. I was there. That's all. Please don't send anything else. Sanaa Wills. She mailed both pieces back to the address on Park Global Holdings' website. At Westside Children's Medical Center that night, Sanaa's supervisor, a kind Filipina woman named Celeste, pulled her aside. There was a man here earlier asking about you. Tall, expensive suit, intense eyes. Security almost kicked him out before he showed some kind of VIP medical donor card. Sanaa's stomach dropped. What did he want? To know your schedule. I didn't tell him. Patient privacy rules apply to staff too, but Sanaa, Celeste lowered her voice, he didn't look like someone who takes no for an answer. That same night, during her rounds on the pediatric floor, Sanaa walked past the waiting area and froze. Sung Chal Park sat in one of the plastic chairs, looking completely out of place in his tailored charcoal suit among the scattered toys and crayon drawings. He wasn't on his phone, wasn't working, just sitting, hands folded, waiting. When he saw her, he stood. You sent it back. Not a question, an accusation. I don't need your money, Sanaa said, keeping her voice level despite the way her heart hammered. Everyone needs money, Sung Chul replied, moving closer, especially someone working night shifts at a children's medical center. That doesn't mean I want yours. His jaw tightened. Then what do you want? Sanaa met his eyes, dark, calculating, used to finding angles and leverage in every interaction. She thought about telling him the truth, that she was dying, that no amount of money would change that the only thing she wanted was to matter before she disappeared. Instead, she said, I want you to go home and figure out why your daughter ran away in the rain. She walked past him, her shoulder nearly brushing his. Behind her, his voice followed, quiet and dangerous. You don't get to dismiss me. Sanaa kept walking. Her white sneakers squeaked against the linoleum. Behind her, she heard his footsteps, measured, deliberate, closing the distance. Miss Wills. She stopped but didn't turn around. My daughter hasn't spoken a word since I brought her home, he said. She draws pictures, the same one, over and over. Do you know what it is? Sanaa's chest tightened. She turned slowly. Sung Chal pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket. He held it up carefully. A child's drawing, 2 stick figures holding hands, one tall, one small. Both had tears drawn as blue lines down their faces. She draws you, he said, his voice raw. She draws the woman who held her hand in the rain, and every time I try to talk to her, she turns away. Sanaa felt something crack inside her chest. That's not my problem to solve, she whispered. Then whose is it? Sung Chal asked, because I've tried everything and the only thing that's worked was you. Sanaa could feel his eyes on her back and she knew this wasn't over. 2 weeks passed. Sanaa convinced herself that Sung Chul Park had moved on, found another way to settle whatever debt he thought he owed. Then Celeste handed her a small cream-colored envelope during shift change. Inside, on heavy cardstock, was a child's drawing, a garden full of flowers, 2 stick figures holding hands, and words in careful, uneven handwriting. Please come visit. Zuri. The address was in Beverly Hills, one of those streets where the homes hid behind gates and hedges, where security cameras tracked your approach before you even rang the bell. Sanaa almost turned around 3 times on the drive over. She didn't belong in this world. But the drawing sat on her passenger seat, and she kept thinking about those wide, silent eyes in the hospital. When she finally pressed the intercom button, Sung Chul's voice crackled through. I didn't think you'd come. I didn't come for you, Sanaa replied. The gate opened. The house was modern, all glass and clean lines, more museum than home. Sang-chul met her at the door, no suit this time, just dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. It made him look almost human. "She's been asking about you," he said, drawing that picture over and over until she got it right. Zuri was in the garden, an enclosed courtyard with a koi pond and flowers Sana couldn't name. The moment Zuri saw her, something in the child's face broke open. Not quite a smile, but close. She ran to Sana, wrapped thin arms around her waist, and held on like she was afraid Sana might vanish. "Hey, sweet girl," Sana whispered, kneeling down. "I got your picture. It's beautiful." Zuri pulled back just enough to look at her, then pointed to the flowers. Sana understood. "You want to show me?" Zuri nodded, took her hand, and led her through the garden. Behind them, Sung-chul watched from the doorway, his expression unreadable. They spent an hour among the flowers. Zuri didn't speak, but she communicated in other ways, tugging Sana toward her favorites, pressing petals into her palm, pointing at butterflies. Sana named the ones she knew: roses, lavender, jasmine. For the ones she didn't, she made up names that made Zuri's shoulders shake with silent laughter. When they finally sat on a stone bench near the pond, Zuri's leaned against Sana's side, just rested there, breathing in sync. It felt like trust. Later, inside, Sung-chul poured tea with hands that were steadier than his voice. "She hasn't been this calm since." He didn't finish. Sana knew he meant since her mother died. "Why did she run?" Sana asked quietly. Sung-chul's cup stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down carefully. "I don't know. She won't tell me. Won't write it, won't draw it. The therapist says it might be selective mutism triggered by feeling abandoned, but I've never—" His voice cracked. "I've given her everything." "Except time," Sana said gently. His eyes flashed, anger, defensiveness, but then he looked out at the garden where Zuri was tracing patterns in the koi pond's reflection. "I thought providing for her was enough. I thought if I built something strong enough, she'd be safe." "She doesn't need safe. She needs you." The words hung between them. Sung-chul's jaw worked like he was chewing on something bitter. He opened his mouth, closed it, then looked at Sana with eyes that held too much grief for one person. "I don't know how to be what she needs anymore." "Then learn," Sana said simply. "You have time." The irony of those words nearly choked her. She had weeks, maybe less, but Zuri had years, decades if she was lucky. As Sana prepared to leave, Zuri appeared in the doorway, holding a small potted succulent. She pressed it into Sana's hands, then pulled out a folded piece of paper. Sana opened it, another drawing, 3 stick figures this time, one tall, one small, one in between, all holding hands. At the bottom, in those same careful letters, "Come back?" Sana's throat tightened. She looked at Sung-chul, who was watching her with an expression that wasn't quite hope, but wasn't far from it either. "Okay," Sana whispered to Zuri. "I'll come back." She shouldn't have promised. She had 3 months, maybe less. But Zuri's face lit up with something that looked like healing, and Sana couldn't take it back. As she drove away, the succulent sitting in her cup holder, she wondered if you could break someone's heart by dying, even if they barely knew you. One visit became 2. 2 became Saturday afternoons. By the 5th week, Sana had a key card to the gate and a parking spot that Sung-chul's assistant had labeled "Reserved, Miss Wills," without asking if she wanted one. She told herself she was helping a child heal. That was all. But the truth was more complicated and more dangerous. The Saturdays fell into a rhythm. Sana would arrive at 2, and Zuri would be waiting by the window, face pressed to the glass. They'd spend the afternoon in the garden, or in Zuri's room building elaborate block towers, or in the kitchen making recipes Sana remembered from her grandmother. Sung-chul was always there, hovering at the edges like he was afraid to come closer but couldn't quite leave either. Slowly, he started joining them. First just to observe, then to ask questions. "What is that spice? Why does she laugh when you do that voice?" Then, one Saturday, he sat down at the kitchen table while they made coconut rice and just stayed. Sana watched him dice vegetables with the precision of someone who approached everything like surgery, and she realized he wasn't just learning how to cook, he was learning how to be present, how to exist in a moment without controlling it. "You're good at this," he said, not looking up from the cutting board. "At what?" "Making things feel normal, like we're just—" He stopped, searching for the word. "Like we're just a family," Sana finished quietly. His knife paused. "Yes." Across the table, Zuri hummed, the first sound Sana had heard her make that wasn't a whimper or a sigh. It was soft, tuneless, but it was intentional. Both adults froze. Zuri kept humming, rolling a ball of rice between her palms, completely unaware she'd just done the impossible. Sung Chel's eyes met Sana's over Zuri's head. Something passed between them, relief, wonder, shared joy that neither had expected to feel again. After dinner, while Zuri played in the next room, Sung Chel walked Sana to the door. He did this every week, a formality that felt less formal each time. "She's getting better," he said, "because of you." "Because she feels safe," Sana corrected. "You're doing that." "We're doing that," he said, and the way he said "we" made something in Sana's chest constrict. She pulled her cardigan tighter, hiding the new bruises on her arms. The cancer was progressing. She'd started having bad days, mornings where getting out of bed felt like moving through concrete. She'd called in sick twice this month. Soon, she wouldn't be able to hide it. "Sana," Sung Chol said, and it was the first time he'd used her first name. She looked up. He was closer than she'd realized, close enough that she could see the exhaustion etched around his eyes. "Thank you for not giving up on us." "I'm the one you shouldn't trust," she thought. "I'm the one who's going to leave." But instead, she smiled. "Same time next week?" His answering smile was small, uncertain, like he was out of practice. "Same time." In her car, Sana sat gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady her breathing. Her phone buzzed, a reminder for the pain medication she was supposed to take every 6 hours. She swallowed the pills dry, tasting bitterness. In 8 weeks, maybe 10, she'd be too sick to hide it, too weak to drive herself here, too close to the end to pretend. She should stop coming, should cut this off before they got attached, before Zuri started depending on someone else who would disappear. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Zuri's face pressed to the window, waiting. She saw Sung Chol learning how to dice vegetables like it was the most important thing in the world. She saw a family knitting itself together around her, with her as the thread. And she knew she was going to stay until she couldn't anymore, even if it broke all three of them in the end. The succulents Zuri had given her sat on her dashboard, somehow still alive despite Sana's irregular watering. She touched one of its thick leaves, marveling at how something could thrive with so little. Her phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. "Zuri drew another picture tonight. You're teaching her to smile again. S." Sana stared at the message until her vision blurred. She was teaching a child to heal while dying herself. She was falling in love with a life she'd never get to keep. And the worst part, she didn't want to stop. It happened on a Tuesday. Sana wasn't supposed to be there. Tuesdays were her long shift days. But Zuri had texted her a photo of a butterfly on the jasmine bush with a single word: "Come?" Sana had a fever. Her supervisor had sent her home early. She should have gone to bed. She drove to Beverly Hills instead. When she arrived, Zuri was in the garden wearing a yellow sundress, spinning in slow circles with her arms out. Sung Chul sat on the stone bench, laptop forgotten beside him, just watching his daughter exist. He looked up when Sana approached, and his expression shifted. First pleasure, then concern. "You look pale." "I'm fine," Sana lied, sitting down beside him because standing was taking too much effort. Long shift. They watched Zuri chase butterflies in silence. Then Sung Chul spoke, his voice low. "I've been thinking about what you said, about giving her time." He paused. "I'm trying, but I don't know if I know how anymore." Sana turned to look at him. really look at him, and saw past the sharp suits and the controlled expressions to the man underneath. Someone who'd lost his wife and buried his grief in work. Someone who'd forgotten that love required presence, not just provision. "Tell me about her," Sana said. "About your wife." Sung Chal's jaw tightened. For a moment she thought he'd refuse. Then, Min Seo. Her name was Min Seo. He said it like a prayer, like speaking it hurt. She was a pianist, not famous, but beautiful. She'd play at night after Zuri fell asleep, and I'd work in my office listening. When she got sick, cancer. He stopped, looked at Sana. She fought for 2 years. At the end, she made me promise I'd take care of Zuri, that I wouldn't let grief turn me into a ghost. His voice cracked. I broke that promise. "You're here now," Sana whispered. "That counts." "Because of you." He turned toward her fully, and suddenly the space between them felt too small. "You came into our lives and reminded me what I'd forgotten, how to see my own daughter, how to be—" he searched for the word, "human." Sana's breath caught. There was something in his eyes. Gratitude, yes, but beneath it, something warmer. Something that made her want to lean closer and run away at the same time. "Sungchol, I know I have no right," he said quickly. "You've already given us so much, but I need you to know." Across the garden, Zuri called out, "Sana, look!" She was holding a butterfly cupped gently in her hands, eyes shining with wonder. Sana stood too quickly, and the world tilted. She felt Sungchal's hand catch her elbow, steadying her. "You're not fine," he said, his voice sharp with worry. "I'm just tired," she insisted, pulling away gently. But her hands were shaking, and the fever was making everything feel distant and strange. She made it to Zuri, admired the butterfly, watched it fly away. When she turned back, Sungchal was watching her with an expression that looked like fear. "Stay for dinner," he said, not an invitation, a plea. "I should go home." "Sana," he moved closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Please, stay." She should have said no, should have created distance before things got more tangled. But Zuri was tugging at her hand, and Sungchol was looking at her like she was something precious, and Sana was so tired of being alone. "Okay," she whispered, "I'll stay." That night, over a dinner that Sungchol burned twice and they laughed about anyway, Sana felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in months. Hope. Dangerous, foolish hope that maybe, just maybe, she could have this, even if only for a little while. She didn't notice the way Sungchal's eyes tracked her every movement, cataloging the tremor in her hands, the way she pushed food around her plate instead of eating. She didn't see the moment he decided that something was wrong, but he did, and he wasn't going to let it go. Later, as Zuri fell asleep on the couch between them during a movie, Sungchal carried his daughter upstairs. Sana stayed on the couch, her face relaxed in a way he'd never seen before. He draped a blanket over her shoulders and sat in the chair across from her, just watching. Something was wrong. He'd built an empire on reading people, on sensing weakness and opportunity, and every instinct he had was screaming that Sana Bells was hiding something, something that terrified her more than anything he'd ever seen. Sana stopped answering her phone on Wednesday. By Thursday evening, Sung Chul had called 6 times, each voicemail progressively less composed. By Friday morning, he was standing outside West Side Children's Medical Center, waiting for Celeste to finish her shift. "I need to know if Sana's all right," he said without preamble. Celeste looked him up and down, this billionaire in a $1,000 suit, holding a coffee he clearly didn't want, looking like he hadn't slept. "She called in sick, that's all I can tell you." "For how long? That's private." Sung Chul's composure cracked. "She's not answering her phone. She's not responding to texts. Zuri keeps asking when she's coming back, and I don't know what to tell her, because Sana just disappeared." Celeste's expression softened. She pulled him aside, lowered her voice. "Look, I don't know what's going on between you two, but Sana's been calling in sick more often lately, losing weight. I've tried talking to her, but she shuts down. If you actually care about her, maybe push harder than I can." Sung Chul drove to Sana's apartment, a modest building in Koreatown, 4th floor, no elevator. He knocked. Silence. Knocked again. "Sana, I know you're in there, please." Nothing. He pressed his forehead against the door. Zuri misses you. He stopped, his voice dropping to something raw. I'm worried. Just let me know you're okay. From inside, faintly, go away. Relief flooded through him. She was alive, followed immediately by frustration. Not until you talk to me. I'm sick. I don't want you to catch anything. I don't care. A long pause, then the sound of locks turning. The door opened a crack. Sanaa stood there in an oversized sweater and leggings, her natural hair wrapped in a silk scarf, her face drawn. She looked exhausted, beautiful and exhausted. You shouldn't be here, she said. Sung Chul pushed the door open gently, stepping inside before she could stop him. The apartment was small, one room serving as bedroom, living room, and kitchen, clean but sparse. He noticed the pill bottles on the counter immediately. Too many bottles. What's wrong? He asked, turning to face her. Just a flu. I'll be better in a few days. You're lying. Her eyes flashed. You don't get to come into my home and accuse me. I'm not accusing, I'm asking. He moved closer, his voice softening. Sanaa, you've been there for us for weeks. Let me be here for you, please. She looked at him, this man who'd gone from irritated stranger to something dangerously close to friend, and felt the walls she'd built so carefully start to crumble. It's not the flu, she heard herself say. Sung Chul went very still. Then what is it? Sanaa's hands shook as she pulled off the silk scarf, revealing hair that had thinned noticeably in the past month. I have cancer, stage 4. I've had it since before I found Zuri. The doctors, they gave me 3 to 6 months. That was 4 months ago. The silence that followed was so complete, Sanaa could hear her own heartbeat. Sung Chul's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, horror, and finally something that looked like grief. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was barely above a whisper. Because I didn't want this, Sanaa said, tears burning in her eyes. I didn't want to be someone's tragedy. I didn't want Zuri to lose another person. I didn't want you to look at me the way you're looking at me right now, like I'm already gone. You're not gone, he said fiercely, crossing the space between them. For how much longer? The question hung between them, unanswerable. Sung Chul reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. His fingers were warm, solid, real. However long we have, we'll make it count. Sanaa's knees buckled. He caught her, guided her to the couch, sat beside her while she cried into her hands. He didn't try to fix it, didn't offer empty platitudes, just stayed. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red and swollen. I'm scared. I know, he said. I don't want you to die, he replied. I know. But I am, and there's nothing you or your money or anyone can do about it. Sung Chul's jaw worked. Then we focus on living, not dying. Living. He pulled out his phone, fingers moving with purpose. What are you doing? Sanaa asked. Calling my doctor, getting you the best care. Sung Chul, I can't afford. I can. His eyes met hers, fierce and determined. Let me help, please. Within 48 hours, Sung Chul had assembled a team. 3 oncologists, 2 specialists in experimental treatments, and enough medical literature to fill a library. He worked from Sana's apartment, his laptop surrounded by highlighters and half-empty coffee cups, looking for the miracle modern medicine claimed didn't exist. You can't fix this with money, Sana said from the couch, where she'd been watching him spiral for 2 days straight. Sung Chul didn't look up. There's a trial in Germany, immunotherapy combined with Sung Chul. Targeted radiation that's showing promise in patients with Sung Chul. He finally stopped, his hands flat on the table, shoulders rigid. What? I'm not doing experimental treatments. His head snapped up. Why not? Because I've watched people die fighting, Sana said quietly. I've held their hands while they vomited from chemo that didn't work. I've seen them waste away chasing one more month, one more week. That's not how I want to spend whatever time I have left. Sung Chul stood so abruptly his chair scraped across the floor. So you're just giving up? I'm choosing quality over quantity. That's the same thing. No, Sana said, rising to meet him. It's not. I'm choosing to live instead of just surviving. I'm choosing to spend my days doing things that matter instead of being sick in a hospital bed. And what about Zuri? His voice cracked. What about when she asks where you are and I have to tell her you're gone because you didn't even try? The words hit like a physical blow. Sana felt tears spill over, hot and fast. You think I haven't thought about that? You think I don't lie awake at night terrified of what this will do to her? Sungchul's composure shattered. Then fight, please. His voice broke completely. I just found you, both of you. I can't lose. He couldn't finish. Sana crossed to him, placed her hand on his chest, felt his heart hammering beneath her palm. I know, she whispered, but there's a difference between fighting and suffering. But there's also a middle path. She took a breath. I'll try palliative care, the kind that gives me more good days without destroying the ones I have left. I'll let your doctors monitor me, but I won't chase miracles that don't exist. I won't trade the time I have for time I'll never get. Sungchul covered her hand with his own, holding it against his chest like an anchor. How long? They don't know. Could be 2 months, could be 4. Not enough. No, she agreed. It's not. They stood there in the quiet of her small apartment, both of them facing the impossible mathematics of mortality. Then Sungchul said something that changed everything. Move in with us. Sana stepped back, shaking her head. I can't. You're getting sicker. You can barely afford rent and medication. I have space, resources, doctors. That's not why. Zuri needs you, he said. Then softer, more vulnerable. I need you. Move in. Let us take care of you for once, please. Sana wanted to say no, wanted to protect them from the inevitable, but she was tired, so tired of being alone, of pretending she was strong enough to carry this by herself. Okay, she whispered, but only if you promise me something. Anything. When it gets bad, when I can't hide it anymore, you don't let Zuri see me suffer. You protect her from that. Promise me. Sungchul's eyes glistened, but he nodded. I promise. 2 days later, Sana moved into the guest room on the 2nd floor of the Park Mansion. It had windows overlooking the garden and a bed softer than anything she'd ever slept on. That first night, she heard footsteps in the hallway and found Zuri standing in her doorway, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Can't sleep? Sana asked. Zuri shook her head, then climbed into bed beside her without asking permission. They fell asleep like that, Zuri's small body curled against Sana's side, both of them breathing in sync. Down the hall, Sungchul stood in his own doorway, watching, making a promise to himself that whatever time they had, he'd make it count. He walked quietly to Sana's room, careful not to wake them. In the soft glow of the nightlight, he could see Zuri's hand clutching Sana's even in sleep. His daughter hadn't slept through the night in 5 years, but with Sana, she looked peaceful. Sungchul returned to his office and opened his laptop. If Sana wouldn't fight for more time, he'd make sure the time she had was perfect. He started making a list. On a Sunday morning 2 weeks after Sana moved in, Zuri appeared in her room carrying a notebook and a box of colored pencils. She climbed onto the bed, opened to a blank page, and wrote in careful letters, "Things Sana never did." Sana laughed, the sound catching in her chest. "Oh, is that what we're doing today?" Zuri nodded seriously, pencil poised. Over the next hour, they made a list. Some items were simple. Try expensive sushi. See the sunrise from somewhere high. Dance in the rain without being scared. Others were deeper. Fall asleep without worrying. Feel beautiful. Matter to someone. When Sungchul found them, they had 17 items written in Zuri's uneven handwriting, with little stars drawn next to the ones Sana said mattered most. "What's this?" he asked. Zuri held up the notebook proudly. Sungchul read it, his expression shifting with each line. "Then we better get started," he said. The first item they crossed off was that Tuesday. Try expensive sushi. Sungchul closed an entire restaurant in Little Tokyo for 3 hours. The chef prepared omakase, 18 courses of art disguised as food. Sana tried things she couldn't pronounce, laughed when Zuri made faces at the sea urchin, and felt Sungchul watching her with an intensity that made her skin warm. "What?" she asked, catching his gaze. "You're smiling," he said simply. "I like when you smile." Something in her chest tightened. She looked away, focusing on the tuna that melted on her tongue, but his words stayed with her, warming places that had been cold for too long. Item 3 was see the sunrise from somewhere high. Sung Chul chartered a helicopter. At 5:47 a.m., they lifted off from a private helipad, Zuri pressed against the window, Sana's hand gripping the seat. As they rose above Los Angeles, the city transformed into a carpet of lights, slowly surrendering to dawn. "Look," Sung Chul said, pointing east. The sun crested the horizon, gold bleeding into pink, bleeding into purple. It was the most beautiful thing Sana had ever seen. Tears slipped down her face without permission. Sungchul's hand found hers, squeezed gently. "You okay?" She nodded, unable to speak. Because she was okay. Right now, in this moment, floating above the city with a man who looked at her like she was worth chartering helicopters for, and a child who drew stars next to her dreams. She was more than okay. That night, after Zuri fell asleep, Sana found Sungchul in his office. "You don't have to do all this," she said. "Closing restaurants, helicopters. I want to. But it's too much." "It's not enough," he interrupted, standing. "Nothing I do will ever be enough to give you the time you deserve. So let me give you moments instead. Let me make the time you have extraordinary." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "Let me be here for this, for you." Sana's breath caught. They were standing so close she could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Sungchul," she whispered. "I'm falling for you," he said. Simple, devastating. "And I know the timing is terrible, and I know you're scared, but I need you to know I don't regret a single moment, not one." Sana's heart hammered. She should step back, should protect him from the inevitable grief. Instead, she reached up and touched his face, the sharp line of his jaw, the warmth of his skin. "I'm scared," she admitted, "of hurting you, of hurting Zuri." "Then let's be scared together," he said, covering her hand with his. "But let's not waste the time we have hiding from this." She knew it was foolish, knew it would make the ending harder, but when he looked at her like that, like she was the sun rising over Los Angeles, she couldn't pretend anymore. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met, soft, tentative, tasting of tears and coffee and promises neither could keep. When they pulled apart, Sungchul rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he breathed. Sana closed her eyes, letting the words wash over her. 3 words she'd never expected to hear. 3 words that made everything both better and worse. "I love you too," she whispered back. And in that moment, with his arms around her and the sound of Zuri's soft breathing down the hall, Sana let herself believe, just for a moment, that love might be enough. Item 7 on the list was have a tea party like the fancy ones in movies. Zuri had drawn elaborate sketches, tablecloths, tiny sandwiches, flowers everywhere. Sung Chul hired an event coordinator. Sana told him he was ridiculous. He did it anyway. On a Saturday afternoon in late September, the garden transformed into something from a storybook. A table set with real china and silver, tiny cakes on tiered stands, fresh flowers in crystal vases. Zuri wore a pale blue dress and had insisted Sana wear the lavender sundress Sung Chul had quietly left on her bed that morning. They sat in the garden, Zuri between them, pouring imaginary tea with the seriousness of a hostess at a royal banquet. "More sugar, Papa?" she asked. Both adults froze. It was the first full sentence they'd heard her speak in 3 months. Sung Chul's eyes went glassy. "Yes, please," he managed. Zuri smiled, a real, full smile and kept talking about the flowers, about the butterflies, about how Sanaa had taught her that chrysanthemums meant happiness in some places and goodbye in others. After Zuri ran off to chase a butterfly, Sung Chul turned to Sanaa. You did that. You gave her back her voice. She did that herself, corrected Sanaa. She just needed to feel safe enough. Because of you. He reached across the table, took her hand. His thumb traced circles on her palm, a touch so gentle it made her ache. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. How to love someone when every day feels like borrowed time. You just do, Sanaa whispered. You show up, you stay present. You don't waste moments wishing things were different. Zuri came running back, breathless. Can we dance, please? She'd found the Bluetooth speaker and queued up something soft and instrumental. Before either adult could respond, Zuri grabbed both their hands, pulling them to stand. They danced, clumsy, laughing, spinning in slow circles on the grass. Sanaa felt dizzy, but couldn't tell if it was the movement or the way Sung Chul's hand rested at the small of her back, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world. When Zuri got tired, she sat on the grass, watching them. Neither adult noticed they'd kept dancing, kept swaying even after the music changed to something slower. I wish we had more time, Sung Chul said quietly, his forehead nearly touching hers. I know. If things were different, but they're not, Sanaa interrupted gently, so let's not waste what we have on what we can't change. He pulled back just enough to look at her. I love you. The words hung in the air between them, terrifying, beautiful, true. Sanaa's eyes filled. You shouldn't. Too late, he smiled, sad and real. I love you, Sanaa Wills. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you taught my daughter how to be whole again. I love you and I don't want to hide it anymore. Sanaa opened her mouth to respond, to say the words she'd been holding back for weeks when the world tilted. She felt her knees buckle, felt Sung Chul's arms catch her before she hit the ground. Sanaa? Sanaa! His voice sounded far away. The garden spun, the blue sky fractured into pieces. She tried to focus on his face, but everything was blurring, darkening at the edges. Papa? Zuri's voice, small and terrified. Sanaa wanted to tell her it was okay, that she just needed a moment, but her tongue felt heavy, useless. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was Zuri's face, frozen in terror. Then nothing. She woke to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of machines. Hospital, again, but not West Side, somewhere private, expensive. Sung Chul sat beside her bed, holding her hand like he was afraid she'd disappear if he let go. His eyes were red-rimmed, his suit wrinkled. He looked like he'd been crying. How long? Sanaa's voice came out as a rasp. 6 hours. He stood, pressed the call button for the nurse. Don't move, the doctor's coming. Zuri? With my sister. She's okay. Scared, but okay. Dr. Chen entered, the same oncologist who'd delivered the original diagnosis. Her expression was professional, but Sanaa could see the truth in her eyes before she even spoke. The cancer has progressed faster than we anticipated, Dr. Chen said. Your kidneys are showing significant stress. Your liver function is declining. Sanaa already knew, had felt it in the exhaustion that no amount of sleep could fix, the pain that pills barely touched anymore. How much time? Sung Chul interrupted, his voice hard. Dr. Chen looked between them. With treatment, possibly 6 to 8 months. Without, she paused. 6 to 8 weeks, maybe less. The number hit like a punch. Sung Chul made a sound, something broken and animal. Start treatment, he said. That's not your decision, Sana said quietly. Sana, please. I won't spend my last weeks vomiting and exhausted. I won't do that to Zuri. I won't let her watch me waste away. So you'll just give up? His voice cracked. You'll leave us? I'm already leaving you. The words came out sharp, desperate. Don't you understand? This isn't a choice. The cancer doesn't care how much money you have or how much we want more time. It's taking me either way. Dr. Chen quietly excused herself. The moment the door closed, Sung Chel's composure shattered completely. I can't, he pressed his palms to his eyes. I can't do this again. I can't watch someone I love. He couldn't finish. Sana's heart broke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. He lowered his hands, and his eyes were red. Just fight, please, one more time. For me, for Zuri, for us. Sana looked at this man, this beautiful, broken man who'd somehow learned to love again, despite knowing exactly how this would end. Palliative chemo, the kind that manages symptoms without destroying quality of life. I'll do that, but the moment it stops working or makes things worse, we stop. Deal? He nodded, throat working. Deal. And there's something else, Sana said. The list. We keep doing the list, every single item. I want to live, Sangchal, really live, for however long I have left. He crossed to her, leaned down, pressed his forehead to hers. Then we'll live, he whispered. We'll make every day count. Their lips met, soft, tentative, tasting of salt, and promises neither could keep. When they pulled apart, Sangchal cupped her face. I love you. I love you too, Sana said, the words finally free. I love you so much it terrifies me. The door opened. Zuri stood in the doorway, holding the notebook with the list. Her eyes were red from crying, but her chin was set with determination. She walked to the bed, climbed up carefully, and opened the notebook. In fresh colored pencil, she'd added one more item to the list. Be a family. For real. She looked between them, her father and the woman who'd become her heart, and whispered, Please don't go yet. Sana pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. I'm here, sweet girl. I'm right here. Zuri burrowed into her side, small hands fisting in Sana's hospital gown. You promised you'd come back. You promised. I know, baby. I know. Sung Chol sat on the other side of the bed, his hand finding Sana's. The three of them stayed like that, tangled together, holding on like they could stop time through sheer force of will. We're going to finish the list, Zuri said, her voice muffled against Sana's shoulder. All of it, every single thing. Sana looked at Sung Chol over Zuri's head. His eyes held the same fierce determination she saw in his daughter's face. Every single thing, he confirmed. Dr. Chen returned an hour later with treatment plans and schedules, mild chemotherapy to manage symptoms, pain management protocols, home care options. Sana signed the papers with Zuri still pressed against her side and Sung Chol's hand warm on her shoulder. 6 to 8 weeks, maybe less, but they'd make it count. They'd cross off every item on that list. They'd be a family. For real. For however long forever turned out to be. When they finally left the hospital 2 days later, Sung Chol carried Sana to the car despite her protests. Zuri held the notebook like a sacred text, already planning which item they'd tackle first. In the rearview mirror, Sana watched the hospital disappear. She should have felt defeated, should have felt the weight of the timeline crushing her. Instead, she felt something unexpected: gratitude. 6 weeks with people who loved her was more than she'd ever thought she'd have, more than she'd ever dared to hope for, and she was going to make every single day matter. They had 8 weeks. Sung Chol cleared his entire schedule. Zuri's therapist suggested they tell her the truth. Children understand more than we think. So they sat in the garden, all 3 of them, and explained what dying meant. Zuri cried. Then she wiped her face and said, Then we better hurry with the list. Item 9. Learn to paint. They set up easels in the garden. Sana had never held a brush in her life, but under the afternoon sun, with Zuri giggling at her lopsided flowers, and Sung Chul pretending his abstract shapes were intentional, she felt free. Item 11. Sing karaoke badly. Sungchul rented a private room at a karaoke bar in Koreatown. Sana murdered Whitney Houston. Zuri did a surprisingly good Ariana Grande. Sungchul refused to sing until they both begged, and then he did a deadpan version of My Heart Will Go On that left them all crying from laughter. Item 14. Feel beautiful. Sungchul took her to a stylist who treated her thinning hair with such gentleness Sana cried. They picked out a wig, long, natural curls that felt like the hair she remembered having. That night, wearing a red dress Sungchul had bought her, she felt beautiful for the first time in years. But it was the small moments, the ones not on the list, that mattered most. Morning coffee in the garden while Zuri still slept. Sungchul reading aloud from books Sana loved while she rested her head on his shoulder. Zuri curling up between them for movie nights, all three of them tangled together on the couch. The first time Sungchul kissed her goodnight, gentle, reverent, like she was something precious. The first time she woke to Zuri having climbed into her bed, small arms wrapped around her waist. These were the moments she'd remember, the moments that made everything, the pain, the fear, the inevitable ending, worth it. But the cancer didn't care about lists or love or time they needed. Week 6, Sana started needing afternoon naps. Week 7, she couldn't make it up the stairs without help. Week 8, she stopped eating solid food. Dr. Chen adjusted her pain medication. Sungchul carried her to the garden each morning so she could feel the sun. Zuri read to her, children's books at first, then poetry Sungchul had loved. They were running out of time, and everyone knew it. On a Thursday morning in November, Sana woke to find Sungchul sitting beside her bed, holding a small velvet box. "I know this is crazy," he said, "and I know we don't have—" He stopped, steadied himself. "But I want you to know that if we'd had more time, I would have asked. I would have married you, built a life with you, grown old with you." He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold band. "Will you let me pretend, just for today?" Sana's vision blurred. "Yes," she whispered. They didn't have a ceremony, just the three of them in the garden, Zuri holding both their hands while Sungchul slipped the ring on Sana's finger. "I love you," he said, "for however long we have and whatever comes after." "I love you," Sana replied. "Thank you for teaching me I was worth loving." Zuri produced a drawing she'd made in secret, 3 stick figures in a garden, one wearing a ring, all of them smiling. She'd written across the top in careful letters, "Our family." They took pictures, hundreds of them. Sana in her red dress with the gold band catching the light, Zuri between them, beaming like she'd orchestrated the whole thing, Sungchul looking at Sana like she'd hung the moon. That night, as Sana drifted in and out of consciousness, she heard Zuri whisper, "Mama?" The word broke something open in Sana's chest. She'd never be Zuri's mother, not really. But for this moment, this perfect, painful moment, she could pretend. "I'm here, baby. I'm here," she whispered back. Zuri snuggled closer, her breathing evening out into sleep. Sungchul's hand found Sana's in the darkness, his thumb tracing the band on her finger. "I don't know how to let you go," he whispered. "I don't have to yet," Sana said. "I'm still here." But they both knew the truth. Her body was shutting down. The pain medication made everything hazy. She slept more than she was awake now. The end was coming, and there was nothing any of them could do to stop it. Sana Wills died on a Tuesday morning, with the sunrise painting the sky gold and Sungchul holding her hand. Her last words were to Zuri, "You are so loved. Never forget." Then she closed her eyes and didn't open them again. The funeral was small, just family, because that's what they'd become. Celeste came, and Dr. Osai, and a few patients from West Side who'd never known she was sick. The service was held in the garden she'd loved, under the jasmine that still bloomed even though she wasn't there to see it. Sungchul stood at the front, looking like he'd forgotten how to breathe. He tried to speak, to say something about who Sana had been, what she'd meant, but the words wouldn't come. So Zuri spoke instead. Sana taught me it's okay to be scared, she said, her voice small but steady. She taught me that love means staying even when it's hard. She taught my daddy how to be my daddy again. She walked to the casket, placed the drawing on top, 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a rainbow. Thank you for giving me my family back. After everyone left, Sungchul sat alone in the garden. The ring he'd placed on Sana's finger, the one she'd worn for only 3 days, was now on a chain around his neck. He touched it, feeling the metal warm from his skin, and tried to remember how to exist in a world where she wasn't. Zuri found him there as the sun set. She didn't say anything, just climbed into his lap and let him hold her while they both cried. I miss her, Zuri whispered. Me too, Sungchul said. Every second. The weeks after were brutal. The house felt too big, too empty. Sungchul went through the motions, work, dinner, bedtime routines, but everything felt hollow. Until he found the notebook. It was in Sana's room, tucked under her pillow, the list they'd made together, every item crossed off except one. At the bottom, in Sana's handwriting, help them remember how to be happy without me. Underneath, she'd written, don't just survive, live. That's all I ever wanted for you both. Sungchul showed Zuri. They read it together, tears streaming down both their faces. She wants us to be happy, Zuri said. I know. That's really hard. I know. They sat there, holding the notebook between them. Then Zuri said, maybe we could try, for her. Sungchul looked at his daughter, this brave, beautiful child who'd lost so much but somehow still had hope, and nodded. Yeah, maybe we could. 6 months later, the Sana Wills Memorial Wing opened at Westside Children's Medical Center. It was bright and warm, filled with art supplies and books, and everything a sick child might need to feel less alone. On the dedication plaque, she taught us that the greatest gift isn't time, it's presence. Sungchul and Zuri stood at the opening ceremony. They still missed her, would always miss her, but they were learning, slowly, painfully, how to live with the loss, how to carry her with them. That night in the garden, Zuri asked, do you think she knows about the wing? Sungchul looked up at the stars. Yeah, I think she knows. Good, Zuri said, then softer, I love you, Papa. It was the first time she'd said it since Sana died. Sungchul pulled her close. I love you too, sweetheart. They stayed there until the stars came out, 2 people learning how to be whole again, carrying the memory of a woman who taught them that love doesn't end just because someone is gone. It lives in every moment they choose to be present, in every act of kindness, in every sunrise they stop to watch. Sana was gone, but what she'd left behind, the love, the healing, the family she'd helped create, that would last forever. In Sungchul's office, beside photo of his late wife, sat another frame, Sana and Zuri in the garden, laughing at something just outside the shot, caught in a perfect moment that would never come again. He looked at it every morning, reminded himself of what matters, and tried to live the way she taught him, fully, fearlessly, before the rain returns. Zuri still drew pictures, but now they showed 4 stick figures, her mother Minseo in heaven, Sana beside her, and Zuri and her father on earth, all connected by invisible threads of love that death couldn't break. She kept the notebook on her nightstand. Sometimes, when she missed Sana too much to sleep, she'd open it and read the list they'd made together. Every item crossed off, every moment lived, every second counted, and at the very end, in Sana's handwriting, one final note they'd never seen before. Thank you for letting me matter. Thank you for teaching me that 3 months of being loved is worth more than a lifetime of being alone. You gave me everything. Never forget that you were my miracle too. The end. Thank you for joining K Stories by Emma for this incredible journey. If you loved this story, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support means everything. Until next time, believe in love, fight for what matters, and never give up on redemption. This is Emma, signing off.